The other thing that I really love about the work that I do is the ripple effect that it has in so many other aspects of people's lives. Because this
Yeah.
is something that is so suppressed, when they start having breakthroughs in this area, it ripples into all relationships. It could be
Yeah.
professional, it could be friends, it could be the softball team, the choir, the person that you're checking out your groceries with. Like there's so much more potential for authentic connection and
Yeah.
communication when people have slayed the demons that have been plaguing them around their sex life or their connection with their partner or their partners for usually a very long period of time.
Welcome to Making Yourself Clear. I'm Chris.
I'm Patrick.
And today we have a special guest. Today's guest is Dr. Stephen DeWitt. He's a speaker, therapist, and a researcher who has spent over 2 decades at the front lines of human connection. Stephen's journey spans a private practice as a sexologist, facilitating transformational retreats and groundbreaking research with homeless veterans and people living with dementia. What he's uncovered is simple but profound. The same relational patterns that heal individuals can transform organizations. Through his keynotes, Stephen shows leaders how to eliminate silent friction, rebuild trust, and unlock high-performing loyal teams and partnerships. He doesn't just talk about leadership, he brings lived experience, behavioral science, and thousands of hours guiding people through their most vulnerable moments. His message is that the future of leadership is not about control, it's about connection. So get ready for an eye-opening conversation that will challenge how you think about leadership, communication, and intimacy. So, Stephen, welcome. Thanks for joining us. It's awesome to have you on the show. We've been wanting to get you on here for a while.
Yeah.
And we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, it's good to be with you, gents. I'm excited to be a guest and see what we can dig into and uncover tonight.
So why don't we dive in? The theme of our show, as you know, is mostly around clarity of thought and communication, with kind of a heavy emphasis on the communication piece. And we wanted to start by tapping into your expertise as a sexologist and a therapist, helping people and couples work through their issues around sex. So we want to talk about sex, but we want to talk about talking about sex in particular, and why it's a thing that so many people find challenging to communicate about effectively. So would love to just hear from you, from your experience working with people. What are the most common issues that come up that you've had to help people work through? And why do you think it's such a challenge for people?
Yeah. So I've had my private practice for the last 14 years now. And through my experience, it crosses a wide variety of human existence, from ages to identities to orientation to relationship status to religion, culture, all those other kind of things. And the challenges that people face initially when they come and present to me can be very specific. Can be, we're not having enough sex, or my body isn't responding the way that I want it to, or I want to explore this, but I don't know how to. But the underlying fundamental themes that I really go to work on, because I think when you have two people standing in front of one another, naked, without any clothes on, but also naked emotionally and vulnerably, and having that level of intimacy, the most natural thing is to connect, is to touch, is to be with that person. Now, there's a lot of things that get in the way of our ability to do that. And a lot of that comes down to what we're talking about today is communication. Number one, how we communicate with ourselves about sex. What is our own internal dialogue around it? And then how do we navigate and how do we talk to our partner or partners about that? Now, underneath that is, some of the most common themes that I come up against are we've never been taught how to talk about sex. We've not been taught how to explore things, how to co-create things, how to navigate challenges that come up. And guess what? They are going to come up. If you're human and you're having sex, there are going to be challenges. But what we can do, our default is to internalize that. I'm not good enough. There's shame, guilt, fear. I don't know how to bring that up. They're going to feel judged if I bring that up. I've never been, and especially, with the men that I work with, there is this idea that we have to have all the answers, that we're the best lovers, that we have the biggest penises, that we always pleasure our partners, and that's not it. So I think we've never been taught about it. for a lot of people, we haven't been given permission to be really open and honest and vulnerable. And that's very, very frightening. In
Mhm.
this day and age, there's more people that have been given permission to talk about, let's talk about mental health. That has had a very generous spike over the last 5 or so years. We can talk about that. We can talk
Right.
about our finances with our partner. We can talk about a sick kid. We can talk about the death of a parent. We can talk about all these things, but sex. And if there's something that we're working on our sex life, that can be very triggering and very challenging. And sometimes there's pent up emotions around that. There can be resentment about that. There could be past traumas that aren't dealt with because overall we've grown up in what I would refer to as a sex negative society, where sex, if it is okay, if we fit into this little box, and if everything's going well, then that's perfect. But we've never been given the tools or the techniques or the ways to communicate when it goes outside of that box and we may be facing challenges or really struggling with things.
Right.
Mm.
We can talk about it, but as you said, only within pretty tight parameters. And then even at that, people can talk about sex in ways that you're joking about it, like locker room talk, especially men, where that's kind of okay or allowable. But to talk about it in a way that's like real and raw and doesn't feel weird, or like a lot of different emotions can come up. People can feel awkward, they can feel ashamed, they can feel scared, and they can, I think, largely be afraid of like, how will my partner respond if I express this desire or this frustration or this whatever it is. And it's like, as you said, you're naked physically and emotionally, and you're opening yourself up to a form of rejection that feels the most personal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many layers on top of that. So there's the judgment of our partner, but also the judgment of ourselves. So who are we
Right.
to critique ourselves about who we're supposed to be? And then layer on top of that how our bodies are supposed to be, how big or small certain body parts are, how fat or thin we are, how we age. I mean,
Mm.
we could go deep into what's there for a lot of people around this performative norm that we've been fed by society, by media, by expectations, by an attachment to a younger, quote unquote, hotter version of ourselves. Like it goes on and on.
Right.
Yeah.
When you start with couples or with clients, do you have a way to sort of warm that up for people?
Yeah. So the biggest thing that initially when I'm working with someone is building that therapeutic relationship. So a big part of that is just normalizing. So
Mm.
many people come and they have this big, giant albatross cross that they've been dragging with themselves that they're like, oh my God, I don't know how to deal with this, or I'm a bad person, or I'm so stuck, or we can never get out of it. And a big part of what I do is just normalize it. And one
Mm.
of the things that is true is if I lived the life that this person had, that Patrick, that Chris had, it would be healthy and normal for me to be demonstrating or dealing with these challenges at this time in my life.
Mhm.
Right.
And it would almost be more of a concern if you weren't, because you'd just be suppressing and suppressing and suppressing. And then it would come up
Mm.
and bite you in the ass sometime later on in life.
Right.
So a big part of it is one, it's okay. Two, you're okay. Three, millions of people have dealt with or struggled with or have worked through this stuff and have been successful and come out on the other side.
Mm.
So a big
Yeah.
part is just creating a safe space for people. Over the years, I've heard, seen, and worked through pretty much anything and everything that's out there. There's very few things that have come into, my sphere where I'm like, hey, this is outside of my realm of expertise, and I'm happy to, connect you with other people. So it's again, I think, because we've grown up in this sex and negative society, and there's so much that is tied into our sexuality and our identity, right? Of like
Right.
who we
Yeah.
are, or maybe who we've been, and maybe sex looks different. So then we're losing that connection to who we thought we were. And that can really be something that's challenging. So one, normalizing it, and two, giving people the space to talk. in my younger years, I'm Dr. Stephen DeWitt, and I have lots of letters after my name and wrote a book and blah, 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 blah. So people would want to talk to me. And what I thought is that I was real smart and that people wanted me to talk a lot and share my wisdom with them.
Mhm.
And now I've come to a place where the vast majority of my calls is listening.
Yeah.
People, especially when we start off, want a safe space to talk. Get all that stuff out that they've been holding in, that they've been scared or suppressed about. And I'm just like, listen, you can tell me everything. And
Yeah.
again, reassuring them that it's healthy, that it's normal, that it's okay, regardless of how wild and weird and whatever you think your life is. I have a huge capacity for human sexuality as part of my training as a sexologist. And now it's more listening and then, sharing growth opportunities for them, or maybe challenging them and holding up a mirror for what I'm hearing. But, initially it was like 80% of me talking, 20% of me listening. And now it's 80%, if not more, of me listening and then 20% of me talking.
Yeah, spot on. That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. I imagine working with hundreds of people and couples over the years, hundreds, maybe thousands, and doing all of that listening as people express whatever it is they're experiencing and going through, you probably notice patterns and themes that emerge frequently. And then I imagine there's quite a variety of things, but there's probably a handful of themes that come up with some regularity. Is that a safe assumption to make? And if so, what are some of the more common ones you've encountered?
I think the biggest theme that I could say is people want to be seen, loved, and accepted for who they are.
Mm,
And our greatest fear is to be judged and made wrong,
mm,
specifically in the realm of sex and sexuality.
right.
And so that is the thing that, if I boil things down, that's what people want. This is about connection. This is about being so raw and so vulnerable with somebody. And that's a big thing. The other
Yeah.
theme is being able to step in and own the desire for pleasure.
Hmm.
And that can be challenging for people to be like, yes, I want this. Yes, I want to be able to ask for this. Yes, I want more of this. Yes, I want it more often. Yes, I want you to do this way to me. Some people, number one, have never been given permission never given themselves permission or a partner to give me permission about what do I really want? Like, what is the
Hmm.
stuff in the back of my head that I masturbate about and that I do not talk to a partner about, or my husband or
Hmm.
wife or boyfriend or fuck buddy or whatever you have in your life? Like, I can't do that. And
Right.
Yeah.
so what does it take to unlock that for people to be able to share that? So those would be the unlocking the pleasure piece, because most people are locked in what I would call the performative piece.
Right.
Who do I have to be, or how do I have to be with a partner, or what have I been taught? Or maybe what my last partner really liked this and I haven't communicated to my new partner. So I'm just going to do the things or say the things that they liked in the past. And I'm bringing that forward where your partner's like, no, 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 no. I want you to put peanut butter on your nipples and put a raccoon skin cap on and dance on the living room table. And that really gets me hard or gets me wet. Right?
Right.
We don't. We're operating from that past. So how do we let go of some of that stuff? How do we shed some of that stuff? And then the other thing that I really love about the work that I do is the ripple effect that it has in so many other aspects of people's lives. Because this
Yeah.
is something that is so suppressed, when they start having breakthroughs in this area, it ripples into all relationships. It could be
Yeah.
professional, it could be friends, it could be the softball team, the choir, the person that you're checking out your groceries with. Like, there's so much more potential for authentic connection and
Yeah.
communication when people have slayed the demons that have been plaguing them around their sex life or their connection with their partner or their partners for usually a very long period of time.
Why do you think that when people do that work, it can branch out into their professional and personal lives in other ways?
So there's definitely the aspect of like maybe the hard skills, like some of the communication techniques and that kind of stuff. But what my experience has been is working with clients is there's like a shift in how they're being around themselves. If you're carrying like guilt or shame or fear or are super tightly wound about things and you can unwind some of that or you can let go of some of that shame or work through and release some of that fear and some of that guilt, there's like an aliveness, there's a confidence that
Yeah.
comes
Mm.
in who you are as a human being, because I believe that your sexuality and how you enjoy expressing that is a really important part of who you are as a whole person. And so being able to have some of that confidence in other aspects and just be like, yeah, I am who I am, and I'm deserving of love and pleasure and commitment and intimacy and vulnerability and fun and whatever else you want to have, you get to create it. That's another thing that I work with people on is like, I'm not attached to your relationship or the sex that you have in any other way than what is authentic to you.
Mm.
Mhm.
Another thing that I like to work with people on, and they take that out and to translate into other places, is looking at having sex meet you where you're at, rather than most people are like, oh, I need to meet this particular level of sex. Like it has to be this long, this many orgasms, this many positions. This is the thing where I'm at, where I'm like, sex is something that's co-created between you and a partner. So
Mhm.
how are you feeling today? What kind of connection do you need? Do you want to be giving? Do you want to be receiving? Do you want it to be soft and loving? Do you want it fucking rough and kinky? Like, what is it? You get to create it. And a lot of people get stuck in a rut of this is
Yeah.
the way sex is. And
Right.
I have to meet there's some bar that I have to meet of what sex should be. And so that's why I always like to say sex is something that meets you where you're at. And so being able to take that into other aspects of people's lives is like, hey, what really works for me today? Like,
Mhm.
what really honors me for where I'm at with my output, with my relationships, with my work, with my team, whatever. It's just, hey, this is what I got going on right now.
Yeah.
And how can I be responsible for the responsibilities that I have at work or with my team or whatever, but still honor the place where I'm at? What do I need? Do I
Right.
need to ask for support? Do I need to plan something afterwards where I can just chill out a little bit more? Like, what is it that I can navigate life with a little bit more ease and a little bit more peace and a little bit more pleasure in my life?
Hmm.
I want to circle back and double click on something I picked up on what you were saying. It's this idea of falling into a rut or a pattern,
Mm.
especially if you've been with the same partner for a period of time where it can start to feel sort of routine. Like this is how we do sex, and not just the positions or the mechanics of it, but the ways of being and the relational dynamic. Maybe it's light and fun and playful all the time, and you want to explore something different, like a little darker, or I want to try playing with power dynamics and being a little more dominant or being a little more submissive. So it's a deeply personal self-expression. But my question is, when you're in a sort of a pattern and you kind of both partners end up reinforcing a certain identity. This is who you are sexually, and this is who I am, and this is if I relate to you as that, then you're kind of stuck playing that role, and vice
Mhm.
versa. If you relate to me a certain way, and I want to try something different, it's a new dynamic, and there can be something scary about that. Like I'm trying to express myself in a new way that kind of breaks the established mold between us. How do you guide people through playing around in that sort of space?
Yeah.
And I ask for a particular reason, which is like part two, because I deal with this in in a corporate setting all the time. People wanting to be more like cultivate executive presence or show up more commanding at work. And I'm just seeing a one-to-one mapping between new ways of expressing yourself and new ways of being in the bedroom versus the boardroom.
Yeah. 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 Great question. I think the first thing that I always encourage people to do, and specifically, in the scenario that you have where they have a partner, is check in with their partner. and see if they're both on the same page of like, hey, we want to, turn the heat up, or we want to explore something new together. Because if your partner's like, no, then that's a different kind of conversation to have. What I don't suggest, and you often, I don't know if like these advice columnists or back in the day when there were magazines, it's like surprise them with a fill in the blank XYZ, a feather, a vibrator, whatever kind of thing. I was like, hell to the no. Because if that is a trigger for your partner that you don't know about because it's new, and they're like, oh, and then there's pressure on them to like use the thing. And it's like, oh, come on, we're adults here. And again, it's time to have some of these adult conversations. So number one is just check in with your partner, see if they're on the same page. Having conversations and regular conversations about your relationship and your sex life is key. So one of the things that I always say to all my clients is if they have a partner, and I work with lots of single people as well, but if you have a partner, schedule on the books once every 2 weeks that you have a relationship check-in conversation. Like what's working, like where have you seen or felt seen and supported? Where has it been challenging for you? And just have a list of questions that you go back and forth and ask both people. How is our sex like? What's going on? What are you really enjoying? What's a challenge? Like those kind of things. Like let's normalize some of these conversations. So back to your question is you want to make sure that your partner's on board. And then you can get creative as like, okay, asking the question, okay, what's that going to take for us to explore something? And so this is where I start looking at the foundations of a sexual relationship. Most people can be like, well, I want Patrick to tie you up and get a wooden spoon and spank the bottom of your feet, right? That's really hot. And you may be like, oh, shit, I have always wanted to be tied up and have the bottom of my feet spanked with a wooden spoon. And you guys are like, yes, 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 yes. Super hot, super fun. What a lot of people fail to think about, and where I get people to start doing the work is, what are some of the fundamentals that are necessary for you to feel comfortable exploring that, right? Because we can often get caught up in the physics of it, the hydraulics of hard into wet, our positions, the fun things, watching porn, like, oh, this is how it's done, or this is how it is, and that's really hot, and that's the way I think it's going to go. But if we start looking at what is the foundation that can be built on? So what would it look like to be tied up? That could be, if you've never done that before, that could bring up a lot of stuff for you. So what is the foundation? The foundations are honesty, or the three things that I talk about a lot are the triad of trust, which is honesty, respect, and safety. Now, if you've been with your partner for a long time, you're like, oh, of course we're honest. Of course we're respectful. Of course. But now when we're starting to talk about exploring new things sexually, being honest with one another may take a different tone because I may have faked an orgasm with you, and that's just kind of part of what I've done. But if I'm getting tied up now, there's a different level of honesty that I need to be bringing to the table, right? What does respect look like inside of, okay, so now there's this power dynamic that we're introducing. How do we normalize that power dynamic so then we can go back to be regular partners after this and going to work or raising kids or visiting our parents or whatever, playing Frisbee together? And then what does safety look like? Okay, if we're exploring new things together that we've never explored together, being tied up, what does safety look like for that? How hard do you like the bottom of your feet? How big is the wooden spoon? So being able to look at what is that foundation that needs to be built before kind of exploring those new things, I think is really important. And then when we start thinking about what I would refer to as non-normative sexual practices, because everything is on a spectrum. There's no abnormal and normal, but they're statistically normative and
just like how many sigmas are you from the norm, right?
Exactly, right? Is having the right context. So when we look at introducing new things, people could be like, oh, like that's kink. And people can get all tied up in their head about what kink is. And the media often misrepresents kink and that realm of things. But I always like to think about kink as giving yourself and your partner's the license to have fun. That's it. to get creative with it.
Mhm.
And also realizing that kink is all subjective. The three of us walk into the bar and someone says, "Hey, what do you think about pegging, to be pegged?" And all three of us, Patrick could be like, "Oh, that's hot and that's sexy." Chris can be like, "Oh, that is a little bit outside of my comfort zone right now." And I could be like, "That's wrong and that's perverted." And then another person could be like, "Well, what do you think about electrostimulation?" And Patrick could be like, "You're a pervert. That's wrong. You shouldn't do that." Right? And then Chris could be like, "Oh, that's hot. I did that last night." And I could be like, "Oh, well, I'm not quite comfortable with that right now."
Mhm.
So it's all subjective.
Sure,
And it's looking at and exploring kink coming from a place of fun, coming from a place of non-judgment, and coming from a place of, okay, how do we explore this in a way that feels good for us? And how do we actually navigate and learn about what's hot for you or what you'd like to explore, and normalizing that conversation that just because you say something that we've never done before doesn't mean that I'm a bad partner or that I'm not sexy or whatever that situation is no, we've never had that conversation about that before.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So you're advocating a lot of communication, obviously, around sex
Mhm.
and sexuality and desires and all the feelings.
Mhm.
I'm imagining that the conversations happen before you're in a sexual situation. You want to talk about it in advance, ideally, or maybe even it can be in the same day, but before the act. And then how do you transition from, because there's a way of talking about sex that feels flirty and sexy and where you're kind of in your sexual energy. And then there's a way of talking about a lot of the mechanics and things that can start to feel a bit dry and clinical. And those are very different vibes. I'm not sure if I had a crisp question there, but this is stream of
Yeah,
consciousness
I'm
and
happy to
thoughts.
talk to the crispiness or lack thereof of your questions, good sir.
Yeah.
So I always say there's communication that happens before, during, and after. And
Right.
developing a level of confidence and mastery inside of that is key to what is going on. And I get your thing. Some people are like, "Oh, Stephen, that's too much communication. And I want it to be it's got to flow and it's got to be
Spontaneous.
Right. Yeah.
natural. And I got to be and I'm just like, Bish, you're trying to win at something that the odds are stacked against you." Yeah, there's a
Say more
way.
about the odds stacked against you.
Yeah, because going into something that you don't know how the other person is going to react, going into something that is new for you, you don't know how you're going to react,
Mm.
is setting yourself for a higher risk of miscommunication, of lack of enjoyment, of lack of preparation for what the actual sensation is or what's going on for you inside of it, what actually happens for you afterwards, any kind of safety that is necessary inside of checking in with the other person, all that world of stuff can really go sideways.
Right.
And so again, there is a balance between talking about it and having things be erotic and sexual and if you're texting, the sexting side of things. And there is that, I believe, is important to be cut with some check-ins about that,
Mhm.
Right.
about what that actually looks like. So often, I recommend if you're talking to someone or chatting with someone and it's getting hot and there's a question in the back of your head that's like, well, what the hell happens if I pass out, fall down, whatever is going on? You can say hey, I just want to hit pause for a second. And I want to check in with you about this is really hot and we'll get right back to it. But this is my question. Have you thought about that?
Hmm.
Right.
And so being able to hit pause on things and then hit play on the fun things are really,
Right.
really important. There is a communication tool that I developed for exploring new things sexually. It's an acronym. I like a lot of acronyms. If you have this acronym down for a partner of yours, it greatly alleviates some of the pre-communication that would be necessary. There is, I think, an important healthy amount of that, but it just can limit that. So the acronym is SWAT-B, SWATB. So the S stands for safe word. And a safe word is something that stops and something that slows down the type of interaction that you're having with someone. Now, people are like, what if I just say stop or slow down? Like, obviously you can do that, but
Yeah.
those are very abrupt, energetic words. It's going to stop. You're going to stop. And like, holy shit, I fucked up. What did I do? Oh my God. Are you
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Blah,
Right,
blah, blah,
yeah.
blah, blah, blah. And so sometimes if you can co-create something with your partner, it's a far gentler way of stopping or slowing down the play that you're engaged in. Now, some of the keys with developing safe words is number one, you want to ensure that these are not words that you're going to say inside of the sexual realm.
Spontaneously. Yeah.
Right.
So mine are taxi for stop and ham hocks for slow down. Okay. And you can be as fun with it as you possibly want. I mean, the real easy ones are like red for stop or orange or yellow
Yeah,
for slow
right.
down.
Red, yellow, green.
Yeah, but you can have lots of stuff. If you're a Pokemon fan, use some Pokemon characters. Like, I don't care what you do, but it's just not something that you'd use in a sexual space. So
Right.
one for slow down and one for stop. The other one is, we touched a little bit about this, but W is for well-being. How are you feeling today? Like, what do you
Mm.
actually need? This is all about sex meeting you where you're at, rather than, oh, we've been talking about we're going to try anal next week, and you're all jazzed up about it, and then your tummy's not feeling so well, and you're like, oh shit, how do I talk about this? Literally and figuratively, right?
Right.
So being a check-in, like, how are you doing? You may have pulled a muscle at the gym. Yeah, burnt yourself curling your hair, cooking eggs, whatever it is. But like, where are you at physically and where are you at emotionally? Like, I don't know about you guys, but life sometimes hits you hard. You get a two by
Yeah.
four in the face. Something's going on. The dog took a dump in the living room. Your boss yelled at you. You got in a fight with your mom, whatever. You may not be feeling your most
Yeah.
sexually charged self. Quick check in with your
You just got
partner.
fired at work, and now you have to come
Yeah.
home and be all dominant. And it's like, I'm
Yeah.
not feeling super dominant. I'm
Yeah.
feeling a bit crushed. Can we
Hell
just
to the
cuddle?
no. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, a quick check-in on that one is great. The A for the SWAT B is aftercare. So when you're exploring something new, you don't know what that's going to bring up. You don't know what that's going to bring out. And
Mhm.
so, and especially if there's a power dynamic that you're explaining where one person is dominant or submissive, or, I like to talk about is the erotic leader or the erotic follower, is what is necessary to like bring things back into equilibrium. And that's a lot of, depending on the type of play, could be for a very long period of time, could be longer than the actual sexual interaction can be. But that's something that's co-created with you and your partner. And it can include like cuddling, caresses, like soft kisses, like washing each other, bathing each other, eating, like
Yeah.
holding hands, like checking in, like some of those things are important. The number of, and this happens with a greater number of female clients that I have, is like you go somewhere with someone sexually that's new, or it's a new partner, or you're trying something new. There's newness around the relationship. And then they're like, okay, thanks, see you later. I gotta go, bye. Or I
Right.
gotta go, and you're just kind of like, and you're trying to grapple with this new kind of realm that you're playing in. So
Yeah.
aftercare is very, very important. The T is triggers.
Hmm.
Now, a trigger can be anything that takes you out of a sexual headspace. Anything. It could be touched a particular way. It could be someone calling you a particular name. It could be anything that takes you out of a sexual headspace. You want to talk about that stuff because you want to
Right.
be able to like create this really beautiful, safe place to play and explore sexually together. And then B is boundaries. And there's two types of boundaries. There's hard boundaries, which is like a hell to the no. That's never happening. And then
Yeah.
there's soft boundaries. And a soft boundary could be like, oh, okay, well, this is something that I'm open to exploring under these particular circumstances. when we're on vacation, for New Year's, when it's my birthday, when I have short hair or long hair, whatever it is. And the only time that those soft boundaries are explored is after communicating about them,
Right.
right? It's not an assumption that like on Chris's birthday, we're going to dip him in honey and he likes bee stimulation. So we're going to explore that, right? These soft boundaries are something that's discussed and then we can,
Right.
move forward when both parties or all parties are involved.
I like that. SWAT B. Do you notice, broadly speaking, differences between the challenges that men have versus women when it comes to communication around sex?
And we've gone very binary with men and women here, so you might want to broaden the spectrum for us. I don't know.
When I work with people and I invite people to think about their partner as a specific, unique human being and get curious about that. Sometimes people read studies, books, articles that say men like whatever, X blank, and then they try and do that to their partner. And the partner's like, what the heck are you that? I don't like that. Don't do that. And I was like, well, there's something wrong with you because this is what the study said, or this is what the book said. Or maybe they bring it up in conversation and he's like, oh, no, thank you. That's not my thing. And they're like, well, then there's something wrong with you because there's this study that says this.
Right.
So I'm always inviting people to let go of any kind of preconceived notion about how they think their partner should be because of their gender identity and get curious about that person.
Right.
I remember as a kid, you're going through the groceries to check out and there's like the magazines on each side and it's like how to blow his mind in 8 easy steps and how to make her orgasm again and again and again. And I was like, how do you know how to make my partner orgasm again and again and again? Have you had sex with her? Because if you had, then you have the ethical and journalistic right to write that article. But other than that, it's not. And what a lot of people do is they push buttons to sell of your sexual inadequacy. Oh, I need to read this, or I need to get better at this, or I need to get this. Now, that's not to say you shouldn't educate yourself, but I am always a firm believer in people getting really curious about the individual,
for sure,
or individuals that they're looking to have sex with. Now, having said that, on a broader scale, if I look at things, is women have been given more permission in society to be emotional, and men have been given more permission to be sexual.
Right.
And those things in different circles are changing, and men are becoming more empowered to talk about their emotions, to deal with them in healthier ways, and women are, stepping up into their sexual empowerment and owning that and talking about that in healthy ways. So I think there's a balance to be held between educating yourself and learning and then getting really curious about the people or the person that you're going to be naked with. Does that make sense?
Right. It does.
Yeah.
It does.
The work that you do with individuals in that space has been a large part of your career. I know that you're starting to make a bit of a shift in terms of the kinds of work that you're doing, and you're moving more into leadership work and corporate spaces and working with teams. And so I'm really curious as to how those two worlds sort of fit together or overlap.
Yeah. So I think people get very caught up in the sex piece of, sexology or sex therapist. 90% of the work that I do is not about sex. It's not about the positions. It's not about your body. It's about how you connect and communicate with yourself and how that translates to you connecting and communicating with other people. And some of the expansion work that I've done over the last 2 years is, I've been part of different research studies. So one specifically around Canadian female veterans experiencing homelessness. And, some people said, well, Stephen, you're a sexologist. Why are you now part of this study? And one of the things that, a couple things is, one, I worked with this population, the homeless population, when I grew up in Vancouver, British Columbia on the downtown east side. So I have a level of familiarity with that. But two, one of my skills is to be able to communicate and relate to people regardless of their socioeconomic standing. So I talk to
Mm,
CEOs, I got CEOs that are, my clients, and then I can talk to people who are experiencing homelessness. Aside from that, a lot of this population has had some level of sexual interference in their life. And again, that's something that I have a
right.
lot of, experience with as well. And then from there, trampolined into another research study around the future of dementia care in Canada. So I facilitate conversations with professional caregivers, family caregivers, and people with dementia about their lived experience and what they need and the resources that are available. So when I started stepping back and looking at the entirety of what I've been doing and what I'm good at and what I support and facilitate other people to develop skills and confidence and mastery and is about communication and is
Right. Yeah.
about connecting with other people. So then when I think about, my corporate experience, and that there is, I think, such a need to be able to connect and to be able to challenge some of the norms, challenge some of the conversations that we have with ourselves, and challenge some of the prejudice, the stigma, or the blocks that we have about some people that we work with, or some other teams that we work with, or getting into what it looks like to blame versus take radical responsibility for what we're
Ownership.
looking at.
Right.
That really started opening things up for me, and looking at some of the models that, I've developed and worked with, and then mapping them over, like in a business and a professional setting. How does that work? And so it provides me with a really unique kind of lens that I come at things with, that people are receptive to. And it's kind of interesting. There's, people bring speakers and keynoters in, and then to have someone who's a sexologist, that gets a lot of ears perked up and eyeballs wanting to be on that. And
For sure. Yeah.
really looking at, how do we lead human? And I've done the work and teased out that idea of, so how do we lead ourselves as human first? And then how
Mm.
do we connect with somebody else, and lead
Mhm.
them as humans, not as a position, not as someone who plays a role, not someone who's on a team, but how do we build some of that human to human connection with somebody
Yeah.
else, that then you're able to build that trust, you're able to build that momentum, you're able to have that buy-in and that motivation and that inspiration and that desire to want to work together, to want to build those teams, to want to be open, to listen, to be able to communicate in ways that people haven't before. So that's
Yeah.
how I'm bridging that divide, and it's been quite fun to do that. So that's kind of where life finds me at this point.
Like, what sort of takeaways do you see teams having? Like, what kind of breakthroughs are they having that you're witnessing?
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity for people to, first and foremost, to be kind to themselves.
Mhm.
And kind of what I started off before is, like, how do I normalize
The human
the lived
experience.
experience of this person
Mm.
who's in front of me right now? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that are in the corporate world that think they have to be a particular way, or because their
Right.
predecessor is, or, and sometimes they feel really good about it, and sometimes they don't feel really good about it. So normalizing, like, hey, you've been put in this situation. It is normal to feel this way. It is healthy to feel this way. And so I think that's the first part. I think the second part is giving people an opportunity to realize what is being satisfied for them by being in this position, other than
Mhm.
the finances, other
Right.
than money. Like, what is it that's underneath? And this is the fun part, and this is like the therapist part of me that comes out, is, what is that grounded in? Why did life lead you into a place where you are right now? And
Mhm.
what does this job actually satisfy for you as a leader? And
Right.
then the other part is, like, lead human is like, what are you struggling with right now?
Yeah.
What's really going on for you? Because, we get up and put on our suits of armor and go into the workplace and are like, okay, the show must go on. I got this deliverable. I got these KPIs to hit. I got to have my team produce this. I got to like deal with this crisis at this site, whatever it is that you're doing. And sometimes we can get lost in who we think we're supposed to be and who we think other people are supposed to be. So getting people grounded in that allows them to like walk away with some, number one, compassion for themselves, and number two, some space for other people. And, you know, I always lead people with techniques and tools to actually how to implement that day, you know, that can start shifting things. And so with that, you know, teams are coming together, there's more cohesion, there's more work satisfaction, the KPIs
Trust,
are
safety,
being,
authenticity.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was just kind of in my own mind mapping, talking about the sexual domain, but then in the professional domain as well. And there seems to me to be this theme of, first of all, self-knowledge, getting in touch with like, who am I? What do I really want? What's like the authentic me, not just the part that I'm playing or the act I'm putting on in one setting or another, whether it's a bedroom or a boardroom. And then getting really comfortable in your own skin with all of it and being able to just show up more fully and wholly and really who you are, and giving other people space to do the same. And then it becomes a bit of a dance. It's like, who am I as a human being on this human journey in whatever setting, whether it's a sexual setting or a professional one or anything in between, and just kind of tapping into being yourself in the world in a way that's normalized and validated, and giving other people space to also find and be and express themselves in your presence.
Yeah. I think that's some of the fundamental work, and smart companies are starting to realize that. And smart companies are starting to realize if I can provide my employees an opportunity to feel better about themselves, period, be that at home, obviously at the workplace. But when there is that allowance for that humanity to show up, the issues that, you know, some companies face with employee engagement, satisfaction, results, all that other kind of stuff, that stuff starts to solve itself. And so that's really where the cutting edge of like human connection and human behavior, like what's really there. And there can be, you know, some companies, they're like, well, we have our corporate policies and our protocols, and HR says XYZ, ABC has to, you know, so it's also working with their team. Like I always work with their teams in order to have it work for their company. But sometimes it's about breaking some norms, and those breaking through is like what makes the unknown known, for lack of a better word. And so how do we have conversations at first that start playing with some of those boundaries and see what's on the other side of it? And then, hey, if that's the case, then, you know, some of the consulting work that, you know, I can go in and do with actually the implementation of, and some of the coaching work as well, is what I'm really kind of like lit up and excited about. And I still have, you know, my private practice where I work, you know, on the sex side of things as well.
Right. Anything you can do to get people more comfortable with and more empowered around just telling the truth to each other is going to be such a force multiplier in any relationship, whether it's personal, sexual, professional, familial. If you can just get people to a place where they can just speak the truth, it speeds things up. Because in my experience, the truth has this really pesky habit of being stubborn and unwavering, and we can dance around it, but the closer a relationship you can cultivate with reality, the better you're going to do.
It's also just, it's easier to be in a space where you feel like you can be yourself, and you don't have to do it, like Steven said, a performance.
Yeah. It's such an accelerator.
Yeah.
If I were to say, in my own experience, that the number one thing that differentiates mediocre teams or even dysfunctional teams from really high performing teams is the degree to which they just tell the truth to each other and roll with it. It just, that's the turbocharged secret sauce.
It takes a lot of work to be inauthentic. It's a lot easier to be authentic.
Well, and it just, you can't have honest conversations, and you got to dance around and sugarcoat things, and all of that just obscures reality.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to make decisions in the real world, you want to be able to talk about it as it is. Like the better your mental model for reality, the better the decisions you can make.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I love doing is exploring the silent friction that
Mm.
exists between people.
Can you define what you
Unpack that
mean
a
by,
bit.
yeah, what do you mean by silent friction, and where does that show up?
So there's often things like when I'm working with individuals that they won't say, right? So that's the silent piece of it.
Mhm.
But it kind of lingers in the unsaid. So it's something that I've been trained in to be able to speak to that, to see it, to kind of pull it out of the unsaid and into the said of what's really going on? Like what's happening? Like I'm noticing when you're interacting with this person, or I'm noticing when you're speaking in front of this group. This is the kind of sense or the kind of vibe that I'm getting, that you don't like them or you're not comfortable. Can you
Right.
say more about that? Am I right? Like, am I totally off base? But really like checking in to like what's going on. Cause there's a lot of people that are like, F that person or F
Mhm.
that group. I don't like that. I don't want to work with them. That person's a jerk. That person's whatever. And then it just gets messy and it
Right.
gets in the way of what the organization is meant to do
Yeah.
and can stall things out, and then from there it builds
So naming
resentment.
naming elephants, right? Naming
Yeah,
the elephants in the room and then
totally.
talking
And
about it.
then builds up
Yeah.
more evidence and more resentment, and it just keeps going sideways. So it's looking at what are those silent frictions that are slowly draining the lifeblood out of
Yeah.
this team or out of this organization. And how do we address them in a safe place, in an honest place, and be able to name it and then heal from it and then
Yeah.
be able to build from that place.
Mm.
Which is not unlike relationship therapy,
Yeah.
right? Couples therapy. It's the same sorts of things. What is all the screechingly loud nonverbal communication that's happening in the room here? And can we
Yeah.
make it verbal so we can actually deal with it?
It's a fun for me, I am all about fun and exploring things and making things more fun and enjoyable for people. And
Mhm.
I've spent a great deal of my life supporting people and continue to support people in, their bedrooms. And now it's like, how do people have more fun and enjoy time at work or in the boardrooms? That's the fun kind of place to unlock and look at those parallels and to that human
Yeah,
connection.
amen to that. That's something I always made a point of bringing to the workplace was a sense of playfulness and like banter and like make it fun.
Yeah.
Work is work, and you're going to spend such a significant chunk of your waking hours for most of your life doing it. Like why can't it be fun too? It has to be playful, and you have
Yeah.
to be able to laugh and joke, and it builds rapport, and it can combat stress, and it can get you through the rough times, and it's super important. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we usually try, where it's applicable, to leave our audience with a couple of things they can take away that are kind of practical. And
Mm.
one of them would be like, what's a mindset or a mindset shift or a reframe that's really powerful that people can contemplate and adapt and try on in their own lives that would be useful? And then the other one is there a practical tool, technique, framework, exercise, something they can do? So there's one is in the realm of thinking and being, and the other's maybe in the realm of doing. If you have any nuggets like that for our audience, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I think if we look at challenging what we think we know for certain
Hmm.
and exploring what it would look like if you were coming to it just with an open mind and learning and
Hmm.
and asking yourself, what would it take for me to do that? So if there's something that's certain for about your job or your position, about your relationship, about your sex life, this is it. I know this for a fact. This is it.
Or about your
And
partner.
or your partner for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then being like, what if I just came from I didn't know it and I wanted to learn more about it?
Hmm.
What are those immediate blocks that are like, no, you're right, you shouldn't do that? Like, what are those things that you need to let go of? And a lot of
Hmm.
that could be ego. it could be status, it could be safety, it could be security, it could be like all these things. But I think when we can start pulling apart the things that we think we know for sure, it starts opening up far more possibilities than ever thought possible.
Yeah.
And this is something that I got to remind myself. Like I am still a student, and that's bringing that like new mind or learning mind or beginner's
Yeah.
mind to things. Because if not, I can speak personally. If not, and I just go in and I think I know it, I am constantly humbled. Constantly humbled.
Yeah.
So if I can
Yeah.
get ahead of that, and I work with my clients and the organizations that I work with, if we can get ahead of that, what is then the possibility that we can explore?
That's
So
been a recurring theme in so many of the different episodes we've done on various topics, but curiosity is an absolute superpower.
Yeah.
Especially if it's something you think you know. Can I stay curious a little bit longer, or can I reintroduce curiosity here and replace a thing I take as like
Absolute
a fundamental
truth, yeah.
truth? Can I replace that with a question, like a genuine question, and maybe learn something about this person that I thought I had entirely figured out,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then it opens up something new and magical, and it's like, oh wow, okay,
Mhm.
that's new, and then newness is, there's a magic in it and a spark. So I love that. I love the curiosity and the where can I relax some of my certainties. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's great.
Yeah, and then as far as like a takeaway,
So this one, if you've got something in the sexual domain, that'd be useful. Like
Mhm.
if there's a couple or a single person and they want to practice getting better at communicating about sex in a way that feels normal and natural. And like, let's say, as you mentioned, there's a whole spectrum of ways we get weird about it and ways we make it weird. And so say someone wants to just start practicing being more comfortable talking about sex in a genuine, real kind of way. Is there a tool, a technique, a guidebook?
Yeah, absolutely. So so I shared the SWOT-B acronym.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then there's another acronym about communicating, and this can be used with your sexual partner, with anywhere that you want in your life. Could be professional as well, but it's a communication technique. And it's often people get stuck there like, Stephen, how do I start the conversation? I don't even know how to open up because they're going to get
Right.
freaked out about it. So it's what I call the LITA technique. So LITA. So you're going to start the conversation by sharing what you like or love about the person or the relationship. Right. So
Okay,
if someone you just met, you're not going to be like, I love you so much. Right. But you could be
Right.
like, hey, listen, I love the time we're spending together. I'm really liking getting to know you.
Mhm.
Okay. The I is sharing what's important to you. Said another way, what you're committed to for the future.
Hmm.
So you could say, Chris, I really am liking the time we're spending together, and like I just loving getting to know you. And one of the things that is really important to me is that we can communicate about our sex life, or we can communicate about our professional relationship, because I'm committed that we have a great relationship for the next foreseeable future. Right? It's like,
Right.
what are you committed to for the future? So these first two parts, sharing what you like or love, sharing what's important or what you're committed to for the future, set a safe context for that person to listen to you from.
Right.
Because sometimes we'll just come in and we'll just be like, hey, I want to spank you. And they're like, what? Right? Or like, hey, I want you to take on this new stretch project. And you're like, what? Like, you know where things are coming from. And you
Right.
can get freaked out about it. So saying these things sets a safe couching or context for what you're going to share next. The T is the topic. What is the thing that you want to talk about? I want to talk about your performance review, or I want to talk about your future here, or I want to talk about
A threesome.
a threesome. Sure. Diversifying
Whatever
our
it is.
sex life, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that's the topic. And then the A is actually A to the power of 2, because there's 2 parts.
Hmm.
You want to ask if they're open to having the conversation right now.
Right.
Because I don't know about you, but when sometimes people come up to you and be like, hey, you got some time to talk about this? And they're like, no, and they keep talking over you. You kind of want to
Yeah,
punch them in
yeah.
the throat, right?
Like the telemarketer move, right? It's
Exactly.
Yeah.
right? So you want to just check in and be like, are you open to having this conversation right now? And if they say no, it's totally fine. Don't freak out. Just say, great,
Right.
when would be a good time? And if it's 2 hours or 2 days, great, you have that time. And then the second part of the ask is you say, great, because I'd really like to hear your thoughts and feedback on this. So you're now
Mhm.
making this a co-created conversation rather
Mm.
than a one-way conversation of you just saying what you want to say. You
Right.
want to set it safe. You want to invite their feedback and you want to talk about the topic that you want to come up. So the LEDA technique is something that is very useful to get more yeses in your life and create that really safe environment for people to have conversations.
I like that.
Yeah,
I
it's-
like that it's a really gentle, it's like a soft opening, and you're entering into a conversation on a really positive note. You're setting a positive context and an intention. You're being clear on like, here's my intention. Here's what's important. Here's why I want to talk about this. That's connected to something that I value and that you can probably relate to.
I can
And
speak
then-
personally on this. I have used this LEDA technique. Steven shared it with me in the past. And I have invited a conversation with a partner in the past, and it went really well because of all of those things, right? It was a co-created
I
conversation.
thought you were going to be like, and it bombed.
It totally
Yeah.
blew up.
No,
And
it
I
went
blame
really
him.
well.
It's his fault.
It went really well, and one of the most important things was asking, "Is this a good time?" And the answer to that question was no. This is not. This is not a good time for me to talk about this. I need some time to think about it. Like, I introduced the topic, and then it was no. I need some time to actually like sit with this and think about how I feel about it. Can you get back to me in 3 days? And then yeah, sure, okay. We'll set an intention to have a conversation 3 days from now. And the conversation went really well because the person didn't feel blindsided with that topic, and they felt like it was, you know, a co-created conversation rather than me just talking at them and saying like, yeah, I got a lot of problems with you, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's great.
Great.
I think we've covered a lot of great material
absolutely.
here. Is there anything, Stephen, that you feel called to touch on that we haven't covered?
Is there any question you wish we had asked you?
Yeah.
Oh, is there any question that I wish you would have asked me? No, nothing sticks out in my mind. And I'm open to like listeners, if there were questions that they had, you know, I'd invite them, you know, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always up for answering questions and connecting with people and chatting. If something resonated with people or left a question in my mind, I'm happy to, you know, to jump in and answer some of those.
Well, that's a perfect segue into the last question, which is where can people find you?
Yeah.
If someone wants to reach out to book you as a coach, as a therapist, for a speaking engagement, for a corporate team building exercise, what are your coordinates?
My website, so drdewit.com, so DRDEWIT.com. Instagram at Dr. DeWitt. So again, DRDEWIT. And then, people can just reach out to me. At that point, you just email me at Stephen, STEPHEN, at drdewit.com if they have any questions from there. I'm switching websites, but like my private practice website is sexlifeunleashed.com as well. People want to find more about that aspect of my work.
Awesome. We will put all of those coordinates in the show notes so people can find them if they want to reach out to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Great conversation. I feel like we could talk for several more hours, so maybe we'll have you back on for a follow-up at some point in the future. But thanks so much for your time. It's been a lot of fun and a nice kind of different angle on a lot of the topics we touch on.
Yeah,
and a dive into stuff we haven't yet. We haven't really gotten into sex and communication around sex. So it'll be fresh and maybe titillating for our listeners.
There you go.
Cool. Yeah.
Thank you,
Dr.
Dr.
Be here. Happy to come back anytime.
Awesome. And as always, we hope this has been useful. Thanks for tuning in.